Oi, gente, eu sou Pedro Martins, colaborador da editora Roku, e hoje eu estou aqui com a Marissa Meyer, que é autora da série As Crônicas Lunares e de Sem Coração.
I'm super excited to be here. I know lots of other authors who have been to Brazil, both to the Sao Paulo and the Rio de Janeiro book fairs, and they have all told me that they are the most amazing experiences for authors, and that readers here are super enthusiastic and super excited, so I cannot wait to meet them.
You must be prepared because they scream a lot. They are very passionate about...
I hope so. I will be disappointed if there's not screaming.
I believe you are fascinated about fairy tales, right?
Yes.
So, why do you think these stories still have a space in our culture?
I don't think that's ever going to go away. There's something about fairy tales that when you boil them down to, their iconic themes and the symbolism that they have in them, they have this way of transcending time and culture and location. And they're these stories that we can all relate to. We all love to see good defeat evil. We all love the idea of the rags to riches story, the Cinderella story. We love the idea of being able to defend ourselves against injustice in the world. And these are themes that you see played out in fairy tales over and over again. So I think that's part of the reason why we continue to love them.
We were talking about fairy tales. What role do your books play in the centenary world of fairy tales?
That's a good question. I mean, when I wrote the Lunar Chronicles, and Heartless too, I wanted to do service to the original source material. I wanted readers to read Cinder and recognize it as a Cinderella story. I wanted readers to read Heartless and know that this is the origin story of Lewis Carroll's Queen of Hearts. So I wanted that familiarity there. But at the same time, it was really important for me to try to write stories that hadn't been done before. I wanted it to feel new and exciting and not predictable. And so I thought of that a lot as I was writing the books and just trying to think, okay, how can I push this story beyond what people might be expecting from it?
Yes, and did you feel any pressure?
Oh yes, there's always pressure. In all writing, I mean, you want to write something that people are going to love, that they're going to connect with. As the books started to do really well, then you feel like there's expectations then that people fall in love with particular characters or they want to see certain things happen. And as a writer, I really want to please the readers.
So talking about Heartless, I've read that you're not a fan of Alice itself, Alice in the Wonderland, the book, right? I've seen an interview with you.
Yeah, the thing about Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, is that he wrote the most phenomenal characters. I love the characters in Alice in Wonderland. The plot itself is kind of very episodic. It's this thing happens and then this thing happens, and there's not like a whole lot of connectivity, which I personally am not a big fan of. So there are things about the book that I really love, and then things that I would have done differently if it had been me.
So this is why you said I love these characters and she hasn't had a story, and you wanted to give this to the readers.
Very much so. I wanted to go back and see who she was and how she became the Queen of Hearts that Lewis Carroll gave us. At the same time, I really wanted to write the book in a way that there's nothing in Heartless that directly contradicts what happens in Alice in Wonderland. I really wanted it to feel like a very natural prequel to what Lewis Carroll gave us.
When I was reading Heartless, I changed my mind about the Queen of Hearts.
Oh, good.
So...
Success. Yeah, no, I've definitely heard that from a lot of people. I really wanted readers to come away from the book feeling like they had a completely different perspective of who the Queen of Hearts is and how she got to be, the villain that we know from childhood. And so it's a great compliment to hear that from people.
Open his head! Open
fascinated by villains. I think that the great villains, the really interesting villains, are so much more than we see on the surface.
Yes.
Of course, in the telling of a fictional story, we often get the side of the villain that's, you know, evil and cackling and just trying to destroy the world. But I think there's always got to be a reason for that, you know, whether they have, they've been able to justify it in some way, or they're, you know, really trying to do something for the good of humanity. It's just in such a quirky way that nobody understands it. Or maybe they themselves experienced some, you know, horrific thing in their past that's now led them to this path. There's always something there that I, as a writer, like to kind of explore and delve into and try to figure out, why are they a villain? Why are they doing these things?
What are the main difference and also similarities do you feel your writing has to, if compared to Lewis Carroll?
Boy, definitely. Well, the differences, I would say, is that my writing tends to be very plot-driven, and again, his really isn't. At the same time, I mean, where Lewis Carroll, for me, shines so much, not only in his character creation, but just in his wordplay.
Yeah.
I mean, the quirky, the puns, and the poetry, and all of the little hidden jokes and meanings that he puts into his language is, I mean, he's one of the masters. And I certainly am under no impressions that I am on his level on that. But at the same time, in writing Heartless, I did do my best to try to also have that same sort of wordplay and, you know, the beautiful prose and the little jokes and things like that, which was part of the reason that I loved writing this book so much, because it really challenged me. Now, obviously, Alice in Wonderland is one of the most beloved books of all time, so there's a lot of pressure, you know, not only to write something that's going to have my voice and that hopefully my readers will love and connect with, but also that will please the very, very intense fans of the original work.
The Renegades series is being published in Brazil next year, so can you tell us a bit about the story?
I would love to. Renegades is the first of a trilogy, and it is a story in a world in which superheroes exist. And it is about a girl named Nova who has been raised by supervillains. And she has made it her life goal to take down this very powerful group of superheroes called the Renegades, until she meets and starts to develop feelings for a boy named Adrian, who happens to be the son of the two most powerful renegades.
Okay, so just to wrap it up, can you tell us, can you send a message for Brazilian readers, your Brazilian readers?
Hello, Brazil! I'm so excited to be here. I hope to see many of you at the book fair tomorrow, or maybe in the past, I don't know when this is getting posted. I really hope you will love Heartless, and I hope you'll enjoy Renegades when it comes out as well.
Então é isso, gente. A gente acabou de conversar com a Marissa Meyer, que é autora de As Crônicas Lunares e Sem Coração. Espero que vocês tenham gostado e até a próxima. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I love your tattoo, by the way.
Are you a Harry Potter fan?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.